Last October, I pulled the cushion off my old case tractor and found something that stopped me cold for a full 10 seconds. Shredded foam packed tight into a ball, droppings along the seat pan, wires on the left side chewed down to bare copper, and one mouse frozen in the middle of it, staring at me like I was the one intruding. 3 snap traps were sitting in that shed. I had set them in September. Not one had been touched in 7 weeks. That was the last snap trap I bought. I am Earl. By the time you find the droppings on the pantry shelf, or the chewed bag of dog food, or the wiring that stopped working for no clear reason, you are already 6 weeks behind. Mice breed at a speed that makes most pest problems look lazy. A single pair can produce close to 60 pups in a year, and those pups are sexually mature within 6 weeks of birth. The nest you just found has already had 2 generations living in it. Mice chew electrical wiring, ruin insulation in walls, attics, sheds, and engine compartments, and contaminate every surface they travel across. They carry close to 30 diseases that transfer to humans, and they do not need a large opening to get inside. A gap the width of a pencil eraser is enough. The foundation joint, the sill plate, the gap around a water pipe, the weather strip on a garage door that does not quite reach the floor. They find all of it. I spent 4 winters cycling through hardware store solutions, snap traps, glue boards, an electronic zapper that smelled like burned plastic every time it caught something. One season, I bought an ultrasonic repeller because a neighbor swore it had emptied his crawl space. Mice nested 6 inches below it by March. 3 pups in the nest. I am not embarrassed about any of that anymore, because almost every person who has had a serious mouse problem has done the same thing. You buy whatever has the boldest box. The box has the highest markup. Today, I want to share 3 methods, all free or close to it, built from things already in your kitchen or shed. No poison your dog can stumble onto. No glue board your cat might walk across. And I'm going to spend as much time on where to place these as I do on how to make them, because placement is what almost every tip video skips. A good bait in the wrong location catches nothing. A simple bait sitting directly on the route can empty a nest in 2 nights. Stay through all 3. The third one is what solved my shed. Before anything else, I need to explain why snap traps stop working after the first week. Mice are neophobic, genuinely afraid of new objects appearing in their territory. A fresh snap trap carries the smell of the store shelf, the truck seat, your hand, and bare metal. To a mouse, that combination reads as danger. They root around it, sometimes for weeks, while continuing to eat everything in sight. The ones that trip the trap in the first few days are usually young mice, still learning their territory, curious enough to investigate something unfamiliar. You catch 3 or 4 and assume the problem is handled. The experienced adults, the ones that have been breeding in your wall for 2 months, those are still running their established routes around the trap and raising another litter. Mice do not wander. They run fixed paths, usually within 30 feet of the nest, the same wall edge every night, the same gap behind the refrigerator, the same beam in the barn rafters, and they leave a record of it. The dark grease streak running low along the baseboard, where fur has rubbed the same line, night after night. That is the root. That is where your bait has to be. Method 1. Baking soda and cocoa powder. 2 tablespoons of baking soda, 1 tablespoon of cocoa powder. If you do not have cocoa, powdered sugar works the same way. Mix them dry, no water, no paste. A loose powder you can spoon into a bottle cap or a piece of foil folded into a shallow tray.
Mice cannot burp. They also cannot vomit. Most mammals release gas when pressure builds in the stomach. Mice have no mechanism for it. When they eat baking soda, it reacts with stomach acid and produces carbon dioxide with nowhere to go. It is not a fast death, and I will not suggest otherwise. But it is fatal within a day or two of consumption. It costs nothing, and it is far safer around pets than any rodenticide sold in a store. The cocoa is doing real work here. Mice are not going to seek out a pile of white powder on a bottle cap. The sweet smell pulls them in. Once they start eating, they do not separate the baking soda from the rest of the mixture. The whole batch costs less than a single snap trap and requires no resetting. Keep the container shallow. A bottle cap is ideal because a mouse can reach the mixture from the side without committing to climbing in. Mice do not linger in open space. They grab and move. Now, where to place it? Get down low and look at the baseboards in the rooms where you have seen signs. You are looking for a dark, greasy line running 3 to 6 inches up the wall, smooth and consistent. That is fur residue from mice traveling the same path every night. Find that mark, and you have found the route. Place the bait within 2 inches of the wall, not in the middle of the room where you happen to see a mouse run. On the route, under the sink, near the pipe gaps, behind the refrigerator against the back wall, in the corner of the pantry where the droppings are concentrated, inside any cabinet where packaging has been chewed. Keep it out of reach of dogs and children. Use enclosed spaces, cabinets with closed doors, the void behind appliances, the gap between the chest freezer and the wall. If you need to bait an area where a pet can nose around, fold a piece of cardboard into a small covered tunnel and put the bait inside. Mice go in. Most dogs do not bother. Check it every 2 days. Disturbed or partially eaten bait means your placement is correct. Replace it and leave it in that same spot. Bait that sits completely untouched for 5 days should move. A fresh bait in a slightly different position resets the mouse's suspicion of the whole setup. Method 2. The bucket trap. Almost everyone watching has a 5-gallon bucket somewhere on the property. One that held deck stain. One near the garden hose. One you have been meaning to throw out for 3 years. That bucket is about to do something useful. You need the bucket, a wooden dowel or old broom handle long enough to span the mouth of it, and an empty cardboard tube from a paper towel roll or toilet paper roll. For bait, use peanut butter, a small piece of chocolate or bacon grease, whatever is in the kitchen. Balance the cardboard tube over the rim so that 1/3 rests on the edge and 2/3 hang over the center of the bucket. Smear a small amount of peanut butter on the far end, the end hanging above open air. Lean a board or a piece of scrap wood against the outside of the bucket as a ramp up to the rim. A mouse climbs the ramp, smells the peanut butter, walks out along the tube toward the bait, and when its weight crosses the tipping point, the tube drops. The mouse drops into the bucket. The tube bounces back to level. You can collect several mice in a single night without resetting anything between catches. I've compiled all these traditional methods into a manual. The link is in the description. Whether you add water is your call. 4 inches of water makes it a kill trap. Dry means live capture, and if you go that route, release them at least a mile from the house. A 1/4 mile is not enough. I found that out on my own dime. The bait matters less than most people think. A thin smear on the far end of the tube, enough to carry a smell, not so much that a mouse can reach it by leaning from the rim without committing to the tube. If the bait is accessible from the edge, the tube never tips. Placement follows the same logic as everything else. close to the wall, close to the signs, the corner of the shed, the space behind the chest freezer, the room where you have heard scratching behind the drywall at 2 in the morning. A mouse running its established route will find the ramp and follow the smell up. A bucket sitting in the center of an open floor will sit empty for 2 weeks. Check it every morning, and if you are going with live capture, have a plan before you set the trap. A bucket of live mice with no plan becomes its own problem in a hurry. Method 3. Peppermint oil. The pest control industry knows about this one. There is no way to charge you $40 for it, because a bottle at the grocery store costs $4, lasts 3 months, and works better than most of what they sell under a branded label. I need to be direct about what it does and does not do. Peppermint oil will not walk into a full active nest and clear it on its own. If you have 20 mice established in a wall cavity and you stuff a cotton ball into the gap, they will root around it and keep nesting. The smell is unpleasant to them, not lethal. Their first response is avoidance, not evacuation. This method works at the end of the process. After the baking soda bait has knocked the active population down, and after the bucket has collected the mice moving most visibly through your space, Peppermint closes the doors. Soak the cotton balls until they are thoroughly wet, not just dabbed. The concentration needs to be strong enough that your own eyes water a little when you hold one at arm's length. Peppermint that smells pleasant to you will not bother a mouse enough to matter. Sharp, aggressive concentration does. Place them at every entry point you can identify. Gaps around water pipes where they enter the wall, cracks in the foundation, the gap under a door that does not seal flush against the sweep, behind appliances, the corners of cabinets where the framing leaves a small void, any gap stuffed with foam or insulation that has previously been chewed through. Replace them every 7 to 10 days. Peppermint oil evaporates faster near heat sources, and once the smell drops below a certain intensity, the barrier is gone. Run all 3 methods at the same time. Bait to reduce the population. Bucket to collect what the bait does not get. Peppermint to close the entry points as pressure on the nest drops. Skipping the first 2 and jumping straight to peppermint alone is the reason most people decide it does not work. What to fix while the bait is running. This is the part that decides whether the problem stays gone. I have seen people do everything right with the bait and still have mice again by the following month. The bait worked. The house was still an open invitation. Mice need 3 things to stay: food, water, and a dark, undisturbed place to hide. Remove one, and the pressure drops. Remove all 3, and mice that were on the fence about staying start moving elsewhere on their own. Gaps first. Any opening wider than a pencil eraser is a usable mouse entrance, where pipes enter walls, where cables run through baseboards, the joint between foundation and sill plate, the corner of a garage door that does not quite reach the floor. Stuff them with steel wool before you caulk or foam over them. Mice chew through expanding foam without much effort. Steel wool behind the foam holds, and most mice will not bother working through it. Food storage next. Anything in cardboard is available to a mouse. Cereal, pasta, rice, dog food, bird seed, the bag of flour pushed to the back of the pantry last spring. Hard plastic with a lid that locks, not one that sits loosely on top. A mouse can pop an unsealed lid quietly, and you will not notice until the bag is half empty. Water is the one most people miss. A slow drip under the sink, a damp corner in the basement, a floor drain that sits wet between uses. Mice handle food scarcity better than dehydration. A reliable water source keeps them around even when bait is in place. Fix the leak, dry the moisture, check under appliances for condensation drips. Last, clutter. Mice nest in undisturbed material, old boxes, stacked newspaper, bags of soil that have not moved since planting season, the back corner of the garage, behind the holiday decorations. A dark, undisturbed pile is a furnished apartment. You do not need a spotless shed. You just need to move things often enough that nothing stays completely still for weeks at a time. What 48 hours actually means. The first morning after setting everything in the right locations, you will get an answer. Either the bait has been disturbed and the bucket has a catch, meaning placement was correct and the population is active, or nothing has been touched, meaning placement needs to move closer to the wall, lower to the floor, more directly onto the route you have identified. By the second morning, with correct placement, visible activity drops. The boldness of mice running across open floor while lights are on, that diminishes. The nest is under pressure. Individuals have been removed. The remaining mice are running less predictable routes. Full resolution takes 7 to 10 days. The shift happens in the first 48 hours and you will know it. But 1 week of daily checking is what separates a method that clears the problem from one you give up on halfway through. Check the bait every morning. Reset the bucket each evening. Write down where everything is placed and what you found each day. After a week, you will have a clearer map of movement through your house than any pest service walking through for 30 minutes could ever build you. One last thing before you go. There is a full shelf at every hardware store built around this problem. Snap traps, electronic traps, ultrasonic repellers, poison stations, glue boards. Some of them work sometimes. None of them are the last thing you need to buy if the conditions drawing mice in stay in place. The business model depends on reaction. See a mouse, buy something. See it again, buy something stronger. Nobody profits from you learning to seal a gap with steel wool, dry a cabinet corner, or read the grease mark on the baseboard that tells you exactly where the mice are traveling. None of that fits on a product label. A 5-gallon bucket from the shed, a box of baking soda from the pantry, a $4 bottle of peppermint oil. In the right locations, checked each morning for 1 week, these will do more than most people spend $100 trying to accomplish with something that has better packaging. If this was useful, subscribe to the channel. I put out videos on the yard, the garden, and the pest problems that show up when the seasons change. I also cover what did not work, because that is usually where the honest information lives. Take care of the place you live in. See you in the next one.